Hello. I'm going to wait a few moments for some people to pop on and say hello. Let me move you a little closer to me. Hey, Busy. Who else is here? Say hi. Hi, Heather. I'm just going to wait a few minutes for people to pop on. Hi, Lisa Marie. I'm going to be talking today about being a bitch and not being sorry about it. So I just want to wait for a few people to pop on before I start diving in. I'm in Connecticut, and it was record temperatures the last few days. And holy mackerel, yeah, it's just starting to cool down, and I just wanted to get some fresh air outside. And this topic, hey Emily, this topic about being a bitch was running through my mind a bit today, and it's like I got constant verification and validation that this is a message that needs to be communicated. And so, so I'm a bitch and I'm not sorry about it, but let me tell you something, is that I am actually the biggest love as well. I had a session with a healer who channels the divine, and he said that, with my numerology and etc. and my birthday, I am a master and I am a healer, and my gift is love. But at the same time, as being a conscious being on this blue planet spinning through Earth, I am the channel of energy, and sometimes that requires me to show up with radical, full honesty from just a space of love. Emily says she's been rocking her bitch parts all day. Good, there's like validation, like bitches unite. Like, come on, let's talk about this. Like, show up and let's chat about what this is really about. Jessica says, to answer bluntly, if I set her free, everything would be mine. Jessica, you said it all. You just said it all. And Doug Paul says, I'm not a bitch. You know what? The song that goes through my mind is Alanis Morissette, where she sings, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a, what does she say? I'm a sinner, I'm a saint, I do not feel ashamed. And as I say that, I have goosebumps all over me, because this is what this life is about, is embracing all of who we are. And so to get to my point about being a bitch and not being sorry about it is that, I forget who says it, but there's this old quote about how, we're all here, walking through this life together to remind each other that we are love. We were born as love. We are love. But through our evolution and our experiences in life, we take on these beliefs about ourselves, that we are victim, we are limited, we are not enough, we are too much. We're not pretty, we're ugly, we're too this, not enough that, all of this bullshit. And what happens is that as we're carrying these beliefs inside of ourselves, what we do is we attract people into our lives to help us trigger the remembering that we are love, and that we are not these things that we are carrying around like this backpack full of, bullshit stories about ourselves. And so where do I want to go with this? So it's in my work, it is my role to point out to the people that I work with what is untrue. What is untrue? What is the stories that they're telling them about themselves? What is the, what is really the truth about themselves? But also in my personal life, you know, walking through this earth as a conscious being, I am radically honest with how I show up in this world. Hi, Elia. Am I saying that right? Yeah, you made it. Good. Bitches Unite. This is like the Bitches Unite live. And really just owning who we are, because, you know, a few things have triggered this. And I'll tell you, maybe you're also experiencing it as well in the past few months. I've actually started to release the good girl, to release the one who is liked, to risk speaking my truth and being abandoned or not liked or kicked out of the tribe. And hi, Amy. And here's what happens. So as I was saying at the beginning of this, is that we're all here to remind each other that we are love. And through life, we attract people into our lives to trigger the things inside of ourselves. And so what happens is that when we get triggered, we can either take that information and see what is being triggered inside of me. What is, because a trigger is a sign of a non-truth. A trigger is an awareness that I am believing something about myself that is not true. Now, someone can be coming up and telling me that I'm a bitch, and I can get triggered. And maybe I need to own the part of me that's a bitch. You know, we got to take a look at all of that. So what happened for me I'll share an example, and I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Alaya, thanks for showing up anyway. Bitches Unite, I love that, Jessica. Is a couple of months ago, I had an exchange with a friend where I spoke my truth, where I shared with her that this is my experience that I'm having with you, and this is how I feel about it. And it triggered her, and she got pissed off, and there was some kind of backlash, we'll say. There was some kind of defense that came against me. And when you start to know like who you really are, you are totally unwavered. There is nothing that can come at you that is going to topple you over and have you forget who you really are. So while other people are starting to get triggered, you're not going to get triggered too. You're only going to get re-triggered when you're trying to remain in the, you know, the good girl, the good boy. You know, you're trying to be nice. You're trying to be the people pleaser. But what's happening is that as we're moving through this life and we're supporting each other and remembering who we really are, it's also dismantling the victim paradigm. It's also those that are really ready to move forward and remember who they are going to get triggered, see what happened, take full responsibility, and make a new decision moving forward. So what happened with this friend is I triggered her, she came back at me. I knew that it wasn't my stuff that was coming back at me. I knew that I was solid in where I was coming from. And then I just let it like die off on what it is. And sometimes what happens, these friends, these relationships, these people will leave your life, and sometimes you have to let them leave. Because what happens is you don't want to shrink who you are in order to maintain the limitation of the lower vibration. I hope this is making sense as it's coming through. And so we are also playing roles for people that trigger their victim. And so they get a chance to take a look at, okay, do I want to make a different decision about this? And so what happened with this friend, it was actually a couple months ago that this happened, and she reached out to me and said, I reflected on what happened. I actually saw it play out in my relationship with this person, and my life coach called me out on it. And this is what I saw happening, and you know, she took her responsibility for it. And so had I not been fully honest with how I felt or what my experience was of her, she would still be going along and playing out that pattern that is actually holding her back from being her fullest expression. So when I'm talking about like, I'm a bitch, Bitches Unite, if you are holding back any part of yourself, right? So if I was to start holding back the part of myself, then I'm still playing in this role of people pleaser. And what that does is that holds back a lot of my other gifts. It holds back all of my other amazing attributes, and it holds back energy that is meant to flow through. And so own your bitch, speak your truth, because not only are you doing a gift and a service of yourself, of allowing more of who you are to come through, but you're also being of service to shake the consciousness up, to break the patterns and support people of releasing and setting themselves free, because that's what we are. We're mirrors for each other. And so, yes. So in the land of ego world, I would be called a bitch, but the land of co-conscious creators, that we are dancing and playing in this life together with radical honesty and radical love and self-compassion, we're waking each other up and setting each other free. And so, yeah, I'm a bitch, but I'm a bitch with love, and because my intention is always love. And I mean, this has happened. And you know, you may start to experience it yourself, because through the past few months, I've had, like I said earlier, it's like I've had to let go of being the people pleaser. I've had to let go of being the nice person. And what it has done is I've watched people own their power, stand in their truth, stand up for themselves, start shining more brightly, start being more empowered than I've ever seen before. So as hard as it is for me and my human personality and my ego of, you know, not wanting others to be disturbed, it's our roles as humans to be the mirrors to wake each other up to who we really are. So own your bitch. Let me see what you guys are saying here. Amy says, oh my God, what you're speaking about is what I went through over the last year. Found my true self, no filter, no candy coating things anymore. And what are you finding, Amy? Are you also finding what happens is that people around you are triggered into their owning their power, and the victim or the smallness or the limitation are dissolved? Let's see. I know Jessica said some things. Whoops. Jessica said, own your bitch, speak your truth. Sarah says, I love this. Yes, Sarah, because I know who you are, because you are a truth teller as well. And it's not, when you're coming from a space of love, when you're coming from a true connection of who you are and being the channel of consciousness, it's from a space of service, and it comes with the vibration of love. There's a difference of attack and bitch and love and bitch. And again, what I'm talking about is really from the ego personality of, you know, someone being triggered and she's a bitch, and then not taking responsibility for what their triggered reaction is all about. So let's see. Love you, Amy. Yes, Amy says yes. So that's all I had to say tonight. Listen, this is the world we're going into, and we're waking each other up, and it's in service. So if you get triggered, take an honest look about why you're being triggered, and if another gets triggered, their feelings are their responsibility, and you know, stand true to like who you are, and you know, always come from love. Stephanie says, I love this. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, and that just doesn't work anymore. Got to keep it 100% real. Absolutely, especially for any of the people that are of service or are in coaching. I remember my first training with Debbie Ford, who has now passed away. She was a teacher of shadow work. She started off one of her talks about how she was, I think she was in like a coaching or something. She was in some kind of big seminar, and she was talking about what her experience was as far as like these challenges. And the woman who was coaching like called out to her. She's like, you're a bitch. And Debbie Ford just got like all super uncomfortable, and she was just like, you have to, so the coach woman was like, you have to own your bitch, because at the time Debbie Ford was running like a clothing store or something, and she's like, take a look at when you're a bitch. Like if your orders don't come on time, if the delivery doesn't do what it needs to do, if you know, the merchandise comes in damaged, like you have to stand in your bitch energy and stand up for what you need. And so like all of it's not a bad thing, but the perspective that I'm coming from today is that it is of service to others that are in our lives. And I'm just like, I'm actually freaking amazed, because there's been times in this last few months where it has been so hard for me to actually have boundaries. So this comes in, so being a bitch is like having boundaries. Again, it's, you know, the ego term bitch, but like having boundaries, saying no when that good girl wants to say, you know, yes and be liked. To say no is like risking not being liked. And I did that so many times this year to people that I really cared about, but then I saw them blossom and bloom like I have never seen in their whole entire lives. Oop, sirens are coming by. This is like truth. When sirens go by, it's like she's speaking truth. Let me see what else I got here. Oops. Yeah, so that's all I have to say. I'm glad you guys are digging it. If you're catching this on the replay and you have anything that you want to add, I will come back and check the messages. You know, Bitches Unite, I've got a group going called You Are the Medicine, because that's what it is. You know, we are the medicine. We're the medicine for each other. We're the medicine for ourselves. We are the, you know, we're the mirrors for each other. And, you know, as we stand in the truth of who we are, we give permission for others to stand in the truth of who they are. Bitches Unite. Thanks for showing up. You're amazing.